God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 16, oh my gosh, of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I am technical difficulties Dave Daba up in Northern California. As you might be able to tell, I am fighting a bit of a cold, which was brought to me by 2 nights in Las Vegas. More on that in a minute. But Brad, I don't know if you know this, but we are the only show in North America that absolutely refuses to cover that Washington Commanders New York Jets football game, a game which I believe could be played in one of those Aaron Rodgers resorts, you know, Brad, where they keep the lights off for 2 weeks. That would be the best way for that football game to be played.
Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff, a lot of backup quarterbacks out there playing now. I don't know who's going to start for Washington, but the Giants aren't about their third guy, it seems, and so I saw no reason to delve into that when it comes to starting, to look at people spending money on bets and stuff like that. There's so much unpredictability there, but hey, we've been pretty hot. I in particular have been really hot recently. My best prediction, however, was the prediction that Dave Daba would get sick when he went to Vegas. That was, I think, the last 4 people I know now that have gone there in the last month and a half have all come home with something. So it once again goes against the theory that what goes to Vegas stays in Vegas. It doesn't, because everybody's coming home with those sicknesses, Dave. So hopefully you're feeling a little better here shortly, but that might explain some of the problems on the field for the Raiders, because they've looked pretty sick as well at times in the last few weeks. But hey, look, another exciting week. We're getting down to the final 3 weeks here of the regular season.
Yeah, while you've been hot with your picks, I've been hot for the last 48 hours since getting back from Vegas, and I have to say, I've been going to Vegas, for 30 plus years, and this is the worst I've ever been coming back from it. So it is going to be a weekend full of sitting on the couch, watching. I don't even care if it's high school football, but just watching football and basketball. And that's what I have in front of me. I still can't believe that the New York Jets had the nerve to take Aaron Rodgers off of the IR list earlier in the week. I cannot believe that. It is ludicrous. I hope the Jets come back with the same exact cast of characters that they had this season, because their offensive coordinator has proven he is not an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, well, I'm going to start. Speaking of things that are sick or look sick, the Pittsburgh Steelers have looked pretty sick recently, Dave, and that's my first game. Bengals at Steelers. Bengals are favored by 2 in Pittsburgh. I've been saying it for a number of weeks. It's not a very good football team. Still can't believe they're 7-7. To me, they look like a 3-win football team, 4 wins tops. But the Bengals, I think they've done really well with Jake Browning. He looks like a guy. I mean, I think next year he'll probably be a free agent quarterback that'll hook on somewhere. Maybe he turns into the next, Geno Smith guy that kind of turned it around when he got to Seattle, something like that. But I think he's playing at a really high level. They don't have Jamar Chase, which is a little bit of a red flag for me. But that Steeler defense can't stop anybody right now. And the offense, who knows is going to play quarterback this week. Trubisky's out. I think he's probably seen his final games in Pittsburgh. So anyways, I'm going to take the Bengals. I'm going to give that 2. It just feels like a Bengals win. They got a little more. I see them as Pittsburgh's going to be desperate. Don't get that wrong. But they've been desperate for a while, and now they're just desperate for a win.
Yeah, so we're recording this on Friday morning, the morning after that New Orleans Saints football team decided to throw Derek Carr out there. So the news this morning, Brad, a little bit of breaking news for you, if you will. Mason Rudolph, excuse me, is your Pittsburgh Steelers starting quarterback this week. I didn't even know he was still in the league, let alone still a member of that Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback room. Just think about how bad that Pittsburgh Steeler quarterback room is. Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. Mason Rudolph's got a little bit of heart, at least. He might not have all the talent in the world. But in this particular game, I've got to believe the former Minnesota Viking practice squad quarterback, Jake Brownie, is actually going to lead the Bengals to victory. I'm surprised this is just a 2-point spread. And I think that has a lot to do with the wizardry of Mike Tomlin, because when it gets down to it, it probably is going to be a fairly close game, but I like the Bengals in this one.
So you don't have any thoughts that maybe the Steelers bring in Rudolph the week of Christmas and he leads the sleigh, and they go out there and they win? I just don't see it. To me, he's a better option than Trubisky. At least he's foreign and they won't really know how to prepare for him. But Rudolph was, that was the reason they drafted Trubisky. So I mean, seems like they're going backwards, the Steelers, not forwards.
So the people we brought in to replace Mason are now being replaced by Mason. Hey, yeah, maybe it's a new classic. Straight
to Netflix. Rudolph comes in on Christmas week, right?
That's right. Leads the Steelers sleigh to victory. It's going to be very entertaining nonetheless. All right, moving on to a game that outside of these two cities, I'm not really sure who's going to be watching. The Colts at the Falcons. The Falcons somehow are favored by 1 in this particular game. You've probably been on the Arthur Smith is going to be jettisoned bandwagon a lot sooner than I did. I just liked the mustache and I liked what he did for the last for part of last season. But I think Atlanta is going to be looking for a new head coach when the season is over, and I think their owner is going to not make a move till the end of the season, unless this just gets, completely out of control. So when I look at this particular game, I think Colts all the way. I like the Gardner. They've just on paper have more talent and should win this game fairly easily. I'm surprised this is only a single point. Maybe you can explain that to me, Brad. But I'm taking the Colts.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like these teams are kind of the same team. I don't really know what to make either one of these teams. They're wildly inconsistent, both of them. I didn't really care for the Pittman concussion last week. Somehow he's now been cleared to play. It seems pretty quick to me. He took a shot. On the road in Atlanta, I'm going to roll the dice and say it's a field goal, and the Younghoe Koo makes a final second field goal for the Falcons. I just, I don't trust either one of these teams as far as I can throw them. And, the Falcons are at home. I think they're kind of desperate for a win. They might be a little more desperate than the Colts right now. So I'm going to take the Falcons and say they kind of get things turned around and get a win this week.
Brad, in the old NFL, Pittman would have kept playing last week. They would have
got his bell rung, right? He got his bell rung.
He just got his bell rung. He'll be fine. Just get him back out there. Pittman looks a little wobbly. Little wobbly. Put him back out there. Yeah, I just think this Atlanta Falcons team is considerably worse than the Colts. which is why I'm taking the Colts in this one. But I get it. Both of these teams are pretty similar in that they both have on paper strong running games. They both, at least in Indianapolis, they've got a backup quarterback that they can trust. I'm not really sure that's what they have in Atlanta. Atlanta has been disappointing, and the Ritter experiment. Maybe Ritter turns into Jim Plunkett someday, and just has a great second half of his career after living on a Geno Smith bench for 7 years. Maybe that's what Ritter needs. So I like, but for now, I like the Colts in this one.
All right, my next one is the Giants at the Eagles, and it's a pretty big line. It's 12. The Eagles favored by 12, obviously the Eagles. And I kind of feel like it's for the Eagles now, they got to get things turned around. It hasn't been a great – first of all, I don't think it's been a great season. The record, I think, is better than they've played. But I think it's time now, and I think the Giants are primed to get absolutely steamrolled in this game. Going to Philly, I feel like the Eagles are going to get things turned around this week. I see a big day for, Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and those people out there. The Giants, I think it's time to pack it in. They're playing for a higher draft pick now. So I'm going to take the Eagles. I'm going to give that 12.
All right. So the situation here is Brad's beating me by a handful or maybe.
Are you going to flop on us, Dave? Are you going to go with the Giants?
2 handfuls of games. The one thing I'm not going to do here is flip-flop on this one. I'm going to stick with the Eagles in this particular game. If the Giants, their starting quarterback and their starting quarterback's agent had shown me a little bit more last week, I might have a different opinion. But they went into the proverbial hole. So I just, 12 points is a lot. Jalen Hurts isn't playing great. There is the potential, these are teams that know each other. One of my all-time favorite Disney movies is a football movie about the Philadelphia Eagles and New York Giants football fan. God, what was that called? Miracle. Anyways, I'm torn, Brad. I'm torn. I know you're trying to push me over the edge. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go ahead and flip-flop and take the Giants in this one. That's a big spread in North America.
Yeah, you have really struggled with the New York teams in recent weeks. By the way, Dave, I went 5-0 on my picks last week on my own picks. I don't think we've ever had that before, have we? Where somebody got all their 5 guys?
I certainly have never done that.
And so I was putting the heat on you this week. You've struggled with the New York teams, and so I think I made it a point to pick at least a couple of the New York games. We left the Jets one off, but I don't know. I just feel like it's that time of the year where the good team is good and the bad team is bad, and the Eagles need it. They need to keep pace with the Cowboys, and they're still not out of the runnings for top seed in the NFC, although I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion the Niners are going to win out and do that. But, they still got their sights set on Dallas. They got to get some wins. They got to make it look impressive. I think the fans are getting a little restless there in Philly, and that's a highly spirited group of fans out there in Philly. So I'm going to go with the good guys and give the 12.
Yeah, not a lot of places for me to make up some games here. And looking at our slate, that was probably the only one. I'm sure I'll regret it Sunday night. But moving on, next game up on my side of the fence, the Lions at the Minnesota Vikings. Look, I have a bone to pick, Brad, with Roger Goodell and the National Football League. Now, as you know, I've been up in the, as I call it, the Silicon Valley for quite some time. And, I'm up in the land of tech, Brad. And, companies I've worked with have been using AI technology for the last 10 years. This is before it ever got in your hands. We've been doing things with databases well before AWS existed. And I have a problem with how the NFL and Amazon were able to come up with the Vikings playing the Detroit Lions twice in the last 3 weeks of the season. It makes no sense. I do not understand how that was the way the NFL cookie crumbled this year. They should have been able to break it up a little bit. Now, there's a couple other teams that are in the same boat as well, where they're playing the same opponent twice during the last 3 weeks of the season. I don't like it, Brad. It doesn't make sense to me. I just how much is a team going to change between week 16 week 18? Is Jared Goff going to somehow remember how to not throw interceptions? I just, I don't like it. Anyways, Lions at Vikings in this one. Lions favored by 3.5. I really, as painful as this is, this happens to me at least once a season, where I have to admit that the Viking season, the proverbial fat lady is singing, that the Viking season is over. Bring out the opera music. They have gone the way of going into the tank. Kevin O'Connell, the team had its opportunities to win some of these close games in the last couple weeks. They let them get away. Too many mistakes. I don't see them beating the Lions this week. Maybe they beat the Lions the last week of the season because it won't matter to Detroit at that point. But I don't see him beating the Lions this week.
The problem I have with this game, Dave, is it's a 3.5 point line. And I made some good predictions the last few weeks on that extra hook, that extra half point. And this game feels like that again to me. And so I'm going to take the Vikings. I think it's entirely likely the Lions could win the game. But the 3.5 points I didn't like. I just feel like it's a last-second field goal kind of game. And, the Vikings, well, you got something to say on that?
No.
Okay, you kind of raised your hand there.
I'm sorry.
I know that you're dealing with a lot of medication there, Dave. Okay, but look,
just Tylenol and coffee with lots of sugar in it.
The Vikings can play some defense now, and Flores will bring the heat. And if there's one thing that Goff is not good at, it's anything with his feet. Okay, so, he is not a runner, and the Vikings will disguise looks. Flores has done a great job. He, to me, is one of the coordinators of the year. I think he'll be a head coach next year at this time. So, and the Lions, they're not playing great football, Dave. They got to win, but they still haven't really figured a lot of things out. By the way, it's raining like cats and dogs out here right now. It's just such a downpour outside. My dogs are trying to get outside. They're probably all muddy, the whole thing, right? But I get a sense in this one that the Vikings are going to show up because it's kind of the last hurrah. They kind of need to win both those games against the Lions if they're going to have any chance at making the playoffs. I don't believe in Nick Mullins. I don't think he's an answer. But I think there is some things he can do well. They seem to be a little bit healthier now than they've been. And so I say that the Lions still struggle defensively. It's a close ball game. Maybe they went on a last-second field goal. I'm going to take the Vikes. I'm going to get that 3.5.
I think if Jaron Hall had not got hurt, and the Josh Dobbs thing, the shortest fad in the history of sports. There was Linsanity, which at least lasted 6 months in New York. The Josh Dobbs. You went from saying, "Are you having a Josh Dobbs jersey? Are you gonna buy one for Christmas?" To not talking about Dobbs at all. To the coverage of. I finally got around to watching the Vikings Bengals game in the quiet comfort of my house last night, and I was blown away by how many times they had to show us Mullen's wife and Mullen's 4-year-old. Cute kid, nice family, but like, do you need to show it? It wasn't Taylor Swift. It was like over the top. I haven't even gotten to the second half of the game yet, and I feel like she's already a relative. It's ridiculous how much they showed us that. I just I think the Vikings made a mistake by not going with Jaron Hall. And I would have preferred to see the rookie who is mobile. Like, I'm not saying he's the second coming of anybody. Mullins is okay. I know what you're thinking when you see Mullins. You're thinking it's a bad version of Kirk Cousins, and that can't make Brad Hoysev happy. So I think the Lions are going to blow the Vikes out. I think it's over.
Yeah, actually, when I see Mullins, I think bad version of Case Keenum is what I think. I mean, because Keenum had the 1 year where he actually looked pretty good and got the Vikings to the playoffs. But he seems like a similar type of quarterback. He's got a little bit of evasiveness to him. He does understand the offense. I think he's the better choice right now if you actually kind of want to win a game than Hall. But I was never a firm believer that this Viking team was going to make the playoffs. I think Josh Dobbs kind of resurrected that a little bit. But I still don't think they're a playoff football team. I think they would have been better off winning 3 games and drafting Caleb Williams than they're going to be winning 8 or 9 games and, drafting some other quarterback from, Oregon State or something. I think the whole thing has kind of gotten they were led to believe that maybe they were a better football team than they were. But the defense is playing great. And so, look at that defense. They're still in the top 6 or 7 in the league in points allowed. And the Lions are not playing spectacular football. So, anyways, the Lions still got to do something for me, anyways. If you'd asked me 6 weeks ago, I'd have said, yeah, that's a really good football team. But in the last 6 weeks, they haven't been great.
I mean, it's Dan Campbell just must be like, he's got to have like a room somewhere in his house with just punching bags, where he's just throwing dishes, yelling "Opa." He's just got to be like going. He's got to have a padded room someplace where he can't hurt himself, but he can have some fun. Because it is just so frustrating if you're Dan Campbell and you're dealing with the offensive inefficiencies. Hey, Brad, before you go on, so I'm wearing my Los Angeles Laker hoodie and my Minnesota Timberwolf hat.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment on that. Now, as a Minnesota guy,
yes,
which one do you have a bigger allegiance to?
Well,
the current team or the former team?
So, as somebody that ended up in Orange County before the T-Wolves existed, so 1989 is the start of the Timberwolves franchise. So the year I graduated from high school. So prior to that, I was a Laker fan. So I've remained loyal to both teams throughout all of these years, and I like to wear the outfit the day after the two teams play each other, which was last night in Minnesota with the T-Wolves winning, who have the best record in the Western Conference, which is hard to believe. I made one bet last week in Vegas, and it was a 6-team NBA parlay. I got 5 of the games right, and I missed on the Golden State Warriors game, which means I didn't win $780. A little bitter.
So you didn't give me your answer, though. What's your allegiance? Is it to the Wolves or the Lakers?
It's split. It literally is split. I tend to want, since the Lakers have had everything, I tend to lean in those Laker T-Wolves games to the T-Wolves, just because I like the underdog.
Well, the next game has two really good teams, two of the best teams in the league, the Niners and the Ravens. Niners are at home. They're 5.5-point favorites against a Ravens team that I think is a suspect number one in the AFC. I don't think they're a clear-cut number one team. Good football team, do a lot of nice things, but the team they're playing in San Francisco is kind of hitting on all cylinders right now, Dave. And so 5.5, I thought, I'd probably bet the Niners if they were 6.5, 7-point favorite, to be honest with you. And so I'm going to take the Niners at home, and I'm going to give that 5.5.
I mean, this is a game that if you listen to other shows, there's, a considerable amount of money being put on the Ravens in this one. I wouldn't be surprised to see this line come down a little bit. I think it's nonsense. I mean, outside of just being behind you in our picks, I cannot at this juncture see the Niners losing to this Ravens football team. It's a good football team. It is solid across the board. They can do things that other teams obviously can't. Some things that the Niners haven't seen on the offensive side of the fence. Lamar Jackson is a far more mobile quarterback than like a Dak Prescott, and Jalen Hurts at this point seems to be a shell of who he was last year, just probably due to an undisclosed injury. So I look at this game and I'm gonna play it safe and stick with the San Francisco 49ers in this one and agree with you.
Yeah, if there's anything we know about that Niners defense, if you got one really good weapon, they can take that away from you. And Baltimore, they still have to prove to me they got other weapons. I mean, occasionally Zay Flowers has a nice day. The running game is okay at times. Andrews is no longer there. He's been injured. So I don't know. I don't trust those wide receivers and Bateman and some of those guys. I just feel like the Niners are really clicking on all cylinders, and they're gonna put a halt to whatever Baltimore's doing. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it turned out like the Cowboys game or the Eagles game, and the Niners is just a runaway freight train.
Yeah, I mean, I think to bet against the runaway freight train, as you put it, doesn't make a lot of sense in this one at all.
There is one thing, however, that could twist us up on this deal, and that's all the rain, right? Because I don't know if it's raining up there like it's raining here, but whenever that game is played, it could be a sponge out there, the field, and so that could make things a little more tricky.
Well, Brad, is this it's a Sunday game, I believe. Let me we are rain free up here in Northern California until next Wednesday. So
how weird is that? We're getting all the rain down here, Dave. That doesn't seem fair at all to us.
Well, we got hammered the last week up here. So
all right. Well, I was looking outside of my house and I'm going, okay, well, if that's headed up north, it could be a quagmire in San Jose, but
yeah, nothing like opening the door to take your dog out and him looking back at you saying, "Screw you." I'm not. There's no way I'm going out in that. Literally, we had raindrops so big that my dog might have been knocked over. All right, Browns at Texans. As far as I know, Brad, no CJ Stroud in this one. So keep an eye on that, and let's see if there's any changes between now and the start of the game. Doesn't matter who the Browns have at starting quarterback. The defense is just that good. Browns favored by 2. I like the Browns in this one a lot. This might be the time of the season, where some of the Disney princess stories lose lose their legitimacy and turn into end of season realities where a team like the Texans look like they were going to find their way into the playoffs. And while they'll end up having a better record than anybody expected, we'll be on the outside looking in. I think that's where we're at with the Texans at this point.
Dave, the line is 2.5, and I agreed with you. I took the Browns.
Go ahead and flip-flop on this.
No, I'm not going to flip. But I think if CJ Stroud was playing, I might take the Browns at 2.5. I mean, first of all, this Texans team was great for the first half of the year. They were fun to watch. Stroud was invincible, right? And clear like rookie of the year type candidate, right?
Yeah.
But he has shown some cracks in the armor, even when he played in the last 4 or 5 weeks. And now he's going to miss like a second straight week, I think, because of a concussion, it seems.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. I think the fairy tale story is probably over. I'm going to take the Browns, and I'm going to agree with you, and I'm going to give that 2.5.
How is it that, neurologically, we can end up in a world where, guys recover from concussions, in 2 days, and guys can't recover from concussions in 14 days, 21 days. It just, the Texans are still 8-6 entering this game, Brad. And, the Brown, Kevin Stefanski, one of the lowest paid coaches in the National Football League. I was just doing some research last week on coaches that don't get paid a lot. And of course, Brandon Staley finally got fired, and he was one of them. I just don't see them winning this game with or without CJ Stroud at this. I think maybe if they had Stroud, I'd feel differently, but doesn't it feel odd to you that a CJ Stroud concussion, like, is there something else going on there? It's really odd where a concussion lasts more than a week.
Well,
especially when a team is what I mean?
Right. Well, the odd part there is that he's still on a rookie contract, so he's not making a ton of money. But at the same time, he's a pretty good-looking rookie quarterback, and the last thing you want to do is ruin the future. Concussions, I just think they're one of those things you never really know when they're going to come. I don't really know a lot about them, but they seem to have, affect some people worse than others, and that makes sense. I think the predictability of them is still kind of an unknown. It's not like a knee when you get the surgery and things start feeling better, you start getting back and start running, and then it's a confidence thing to how much confidence you have in your knee. Some of these concussion, things that can happen to you, whether you're throwing up or you got headaches or whatever it is. I think there's just such a wide range of, things that can happen to you as an athlete. And I just think for him, it's obviously just taking a little bit longer to get over. Pittman, his thing just happened and they've already cleared him. So yeah. I agree with you. I think it's kind of unpredictable. You don't really know, but for the most part, you have to trust the doctors on that one.
Yeah. And it's just interesting. Now, I don't think you saw this news. I hate to call this like breaking news, but the Minnesota Vikings announced this morning that they're tearing up their turf at the stadium and putting in new turf. And the new turf is supposed to be safer than the old turf. And they there was a quote, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but the quote was like, we believe in player safety, which is why we're putting in this new turf. And it's like you've had the same turf in the stadium basically for the last 3 or 4 years. You knew there was a problem with it, and yet you didn't say anything about player safety. So it is, very, very interesting. The turf issues and concussions, absolutely go hand in hand.
Yeah, it has a lot to do with the turf. It also has to do with just bad guys in front of you playing offensive line, Dave. And so, anyways, I'm going to move on to my next one. Speaking of teams that have bad offensive lines, it's the Cardinals at the Bears. Dave, I sent you a text last week. I actually kind of like the Bears right now. I mean, I think they're kind of an entertaining team. I hope they don't give up on their quarterback. I think he's a talented kid. I think they got to build up that defense a little bit and get themselves a little bit better running game. But the Bears are on the road this week, they're at home against the Cardinals. But I didn't like the line at all. It was 4. The Bears were favored by 4, and I can't imagine the Bears being favored on anybody by 4, which tells me Vegas believes the Bears are also playing better football. But it feels more like a field goal game to me. Yeah, I'm going to take the Cardinals. I think it's likely the Bears could win on the final play. That happens like 2 or 3 times a week, right? And so I'm going to take the Cards and the 4 points.
In a rarity, I'm going to disagree with you on a Bears game. And I'm going to take the Bears. I think like towards the end of the last season, we saw, the Justin Fields hype sort of kick into gear as he put together a really good, 5 or 6 games at the end of the last season, which led us into the off season. And a lot of people ended up taking Justin Fields number 1 in their fantasy football leagues, right? It's like crazy. Look, after 3 years in the National Football League, I often say, quarterbacks can have second parts of their careers. But Justin Fields, this is not about the arm strength, not about his ability to run the ball. It's about his inability to read defenses. And that's the problem with Justin Fields at this point. And I think the Bears would be crazy to roll him out. Now, there's obviously going to be a coaching change, and it's, how this is. You go into a new company or you go into a new football team and you're the person in charge and you think you can, work with the existing talent that you have there. So you can be a hero by making Justin Fields work. If I were the Bears, I would still move off of Justin Fields at this point, and see what happens. Look, I think Justin Fields is in need of a different coaching team or different coaching methodology. Like I said, I'd love to see what Kevin O'Connell could do with Justin Fields. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
So wait a minute. So you don't like him as the Bears quarterback, but you wouldn't mind having him as the Vikings quarterback?
I'd rather have him as the Vikings backup quarterback than Nick Mullins.
Well, I agree with you that he does need different coaches in Chicago, and I think that's going to happen. But I watched the kid play, and he's not getting a lot of help out there. Last week, he had a pass to Robert Tonyan wide open. Would have been about a 60-yard touchdown. Tonyan drops it. The last play of the game, he throws the ball deep in the end zone and deflects off and hits Darnell Mooney right in the chest. He drops it.
Yeah.
And so you got to get some help. I don't think he's had a lot of it. The defense isn't very good. He's expected to go out there and score points on every drive. That's a lot to ask, but to me, he's got a lot more talent than a lot of other guys in this league. You even just admitted you'd like to have him as the Vikings quarterback. So I think that's a point positive. But in this game, anyways, I'm going to take the Cards, even though I like Justin Fields, because I like that 4 points more.
All right. It's just hard for me to this is one of those seasons where it's like the Cardinals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of those seasons where they're down and they look like the worst team in the NFL. And like before I know it, in 2 or 3 years, the Cardinals are going to be in the Super Bowl. And Vikings fans are going to be looking in from the outside yet again. Okay, so Dallas at the Miami Dolphins, by far one of the most intriguing games of the week. The over under on this is 51. I decided to make this simple and go with the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. This is almost a not necessarily a must win, but a must perform better on the road week for the Dallas Cowboys. They've just looked horrible on the road. I don't know how my Super Bowl prediction of the Cowboys making it to the Super Bowl this year could possibly hold up if they can't win on the road. So they got to get that ship right. Look, they don't have to win the game; they just have to play better. So I like the over a lot in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. I don't have a tremendous. I was a big Dolphins fan, as you know, 3-4 weeks ago.
You're like Vic Fangio this.
Well,
Vic Fangio that.
My concern there is Tyreek Hill and his health. That's I would wait a little bit until we find out about that. It seems like he's probably going to play.
Yeah.
He's a pretty tough kid. I saw him running before the game last week, and I think the decision not to play last week was just a function of the fact that they were playing the Jets, and they probably did. They figured we probably don't need him to win this game anyways, and they were right. So I agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot of points. The Cowboys are not a great road team, but they do have the ability to rush the passer, and that concerns me a little bit if I'm a Dolphins fan, because my quarterback is not the quickest guy in the world, and he's had his own concussion problems in the past. But you really can't worry about those things. I think Miami's ready. I saw a little bit of angst in Tua this week. He had a couple press conferences where he made it really clear that this team's not just about Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to take the over in that one. I think it's one of the games of the week to watch. Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I hope the weather's good down there. Should be. If we can get Tyreek loose in the secondary, and I mean, there's not a better watch in the league right now than that team.
Oh my God, Brad is trying out to be the next Dallas Reigns. And Vegas. So I agree, Brad. I mean, it should be one of the most entertaining games of the week. Love like the over a lot in this one. I'm like, I wasn't really kidding about Vic Fangio. I mean, this defense just doesn't have the pieces. There's been too many injuries. As good a coach as Vic Fangio is, they're just sliding a little bit. And, this Dolphins team is like a team that if it was fully healthy entering the playoffs could be scary, dangerous. But I think just with all the injuries and everything, they're less scary and will probably be out in the first or second round.
Yeah, and my last game was the Bills at the Chargers. The Bills are the team that kind of beat up on the Cowboys last week. And I agree with you. I don't think this Miami defense has the ability to beat you up. I don't think they're a beat you up type team. I think they're a, let's get in a 40-yard dash and type of team, and we will take our chances. That's what concerns me a little bit about Miami. Maybe perhaps losing this game. But my last game is the Bills at the Chargers, and the Bills are minus 12. And I've been saying it for a few weeks now. I think they're a better football team than their record. Well, they keep winning now. Now they beat the Cowboys, and I think they've proven that they're a better football team. The Chargers are really hurting coming in. It's a 12 line. I know that's a lot on the road, but I got to believe the Bills are kind of hitting their stride right now. I think they're going to make a run. I think they're going to move up quickly in the playoff scenario. And I think they're a really difficult out for anybody in the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Bills. I'm going to give the 12.
Yeah. I think this is an easy one to look at. No flip-flopping at all here. No idea who the head coach is of the Chargers. Just disappointed in the Spanos family for not pulling the trigger at halftime. It looks like my video has gone out yet again for some reason, Brad. So I like the Chargers in this one big time.
All right. Well, as long as we're there and your video is not working, let's move through the last game real quickly, and we'll enjoy our holidays.
Yeah. So Brad, super quick as I talk here in the darkness. Last game of the week is Raiders at Chargers. Raiders at Chiefs. Chiefs are favored by a whopping 10 points in this particular game. I like the Chiefs a lot in this one. I don't really think that there's going to be any changes in this game that's going to lead me to come up with anything different. So as I sit here in video darkness, I take the Chiefs, Mr. Hoysa.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to take the Chiefs, give the 10. The Raiders, I think, are just playing out the string right now. I like the fact that the Chiefs are getting Pacheco back this week. I think he was a big loss for them last week or so. And he's kind of the heart and soul of what they do. He does give them a little bit of toughness. But I'm not sold on the Chiefs being a long-term playoff team themselves. But the Raiders, I think, are just playing out the string. I don't think Antonio Pierce is going to be back as the head coach next year. Every once in a while they do make this thing interesting with the Chiefs. That's the scary part. 10 is a lot, but I'm going to give that 10. I'm going to take the Chiefs. At some point they got to wake up. I don't know if it's this week or next or what, but Raiders always seem to be a good team to wake up against.
Yeah, you got that right. So Mr. Hoysef, sorry about the video technical difficulties on my end. Everything's working smoothly here. It's just our streaming service is not taking my video. Apparently our streaming system we're using has been to Vegas recently as well. And is a little under the weather. Any quick final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, all these extra teams now that are making the playoffs, Dave, have kept a lot of towns interested in their football team. I think a lot of them don't have a lot of reasons to be interested. I think they're going to be gone in the next week or so. But it certainly has, I think, sparked more interest in football. It's kept the ratings, I think, up over the last couple of weeks. But I think we're going to start seeing the thinning of the herd come this week, Dave.
I think this season is just a reminder to everybody out there that a second and third and even fourth string quarterback is very important for a organization to have. There are no guarantees that a Joe Burrow is going to stay healthy for an entire season. And you've got to have a very strong quarterback room. And Mike Tomlin, for the love of God, get yourself an offensive coordinator that can figure some stuff out. All right. That is it from the video darkness. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBaugh up in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.